Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. This is a show where my lovely co-host Mike Lamb of Focal Point of Utah and myself, Adam Gaheba of Focal Point of Cary, sit down and talk about business topics that are relevant to all industry verticals. We like to touch on real lifetime events that are happening to each and every one of you every day and give our takes on how to handle them. Mike, how you doing today?
Doing good. Welcome to episode 34 is what this one is.
Ah, man, 34, 34. We just seem to be growing, kind of like my age.
Yeah, I hardly remember 34 so long ago.
I feel like there's yet another reference to Spaceballs somewhere where we're filming this live and watching it live. Anyway, moving on, folks. Forgive us. Mike, I'd like to actually have a piggyback episode if that's okay with you. So last week we kind of talked about the can'ts, right? All the reasons why people say that they can't do things, they can't take action, they can't, and more importantly, how to overcome them. Well, this week, I was kind of thinking we could discuss conflict resolution
Mm,
because of the can'ts. You see a lot of different people have different strategies around conflict in and around the workplace.
yeah.
Some tackle it head on. Some punt it and procrastinate, hoping that it'll go away. Some people don't deal with it at all. Now, when you deal with someone that brings up the can'ts, there's always going to be some aspect of conflict that goes with it. So, I was hoping in this episode we can talk about kind of how to handle and how to address that conflict resolution. And more importantly, what are some of our tips, tricks, or best practices in order to make sure that it doesn't disrupt the overall workplace, but actually comes out as a strength and a way to strengthen the overall core and understanding and communication amongst employer to employee relationships. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds fun. Sounds
So,
like something
fun.
I try to avoid all the time. So we're gonna take it
Ooh.
right on.
So,
With my personality type, it's something that I personally feel uncomfortable with, but I've learned and
okay.
we'll discuss. We'll
Why
discuss
is that?
that.
So you are clearly following it in that let's procrastinate and push off, prefer not to deal with it, right?
100%. That's my personality type. And
Why
I
is
think
that?
the majority of people I talk to that are in leadership roles, not the majority, I would say there's probably, a good percentage are dealing, they procrastinate conflict and try to avoid it because it's uncomfortable.
Okay.
And
Well,
it's
so
uncomfortable for me. I don't love conflict. I
yeah.
don't want to, and I'm just going to speak to myself, and it's
Sure.
if you guys listening can relate, you can understand we avoid conflict because we are concerned and cognizant and thoughtful of the feelings of the other person and want
Mhm.
to avoid hurting those feelings as well as taking negative feedback to ourselves.
Okay. So
That's
it is a
number one.
two-tiered kind of procrastination system you got going on. I love how you're saying you're going to lead with you're the empathetic soul who doesn't want to hurt someone, but the real reason is you just don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
don't want to deal with it. You don't want
I
to.
love it. No,
You
I
don't want
think
that feedback. There's going to be some back and forth, and I think a lot of people don't. For me, sometimes it's hard for me to take feedback. I've
yeah,
learned how to
okay.
manage through that now myself. But early in my career, it was very obvious I wanted to avoid that and go way out around.
So what are some of the challenges or the issues that you see arise when that strategy is employed or deployed, should say. Excuse me.
It's well, number one issue is we don't get things done we need to get done.
Okay.
If
So
that
you're
change
prolonging that
or
issue.
what?
You're
And you're
prolonging that
prolonging an
issue.
issue. Also, it's a stressor on you for prolonging that. You're dealing with that stress, and it can be not it can be a nag on your day or your week and sometimes even a month if you push things off too far, you know,
Hmm.
and avoid those kind of conflict moments. So those that not getting things done the stress that it puts upon you, and then improving, we're we're not allowing ourselves to improve and get better by avoiding
Mhm.
conflict
Okay.
and
So,
getting the other individual or business or whatever we're working with. It could be a whole nother business entity that we're working
sure.
with. Um, that we're procrastinating and holding them back as well, the
Okay.
individual, business, or entity.
So, lack of decision elongates time to closure and resolution, brings additional angst and other fears, which could, in theory, bleed into some of the decision-making processes that you're making for other non-can't related issues, correct?
Yep.
That sounds terrible.
It sounds like a big dam of stuff piling up, right? Just because of one conversation or one email or
So,
one giving information, sometimes that's why people avoid it too, is there's bad data that doesn't look good, but we need to share that.
yeah, I'm kind of equating this philosophy to the slow rip-off of the Band-Aid.
I like that. I like that
You
analogy.
know, it's the you know it's going to hurt, so you're being very tentative with the pull. You're poking, you're prodding, you're going at that Band-Aid from all four corners to see which is the least sensitive, aka which one's going to hurt the least. But the reality is that angst and pain and fear that you're putting into yourself as you poke around is actually worse than the actual ripping and removing of the Band-Aid to begin with.
Yeah.
No?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine the Kent that we're trying to overcome, just digging and making it go slowly.
I could see a situation where the can't is actually not even as bad as the confrontation.
I think there's some
Um,
people that say, yeah, I think it's built out that way.
so, so I get that, right? That's obviously not my style. You're
Yeah.
clearly a much nicer human being than I am, and I'm not saying I love confrontation.
Let's talk about this from the other side. What about those that really appreciate and enjoy confrontation, and when the cants come up, go to the opposite direction of very harshly approaching something and not
Hmm.
understanding the situation or the individual on the other side,
That
That's a
is a
personality type.
whole different ball game of awful because you're breeding an ecosystem where only one person has a say. You're basically telling that other person that their feelings, their thoughts are not important, that you're going to address whatever situation that there is, and you're going to lay out your views, your expectations. It sounds like if we're talking about one of our leadership styles, that it is the dictator role, right? To me, Mike, that just breeds animosity. Now, while I am not afraid of the confrontation, I'm a mix of a couple of those different leadership styles. So I also like to lead with empathy because once again, you don't know what someone's dealing with. You don't know what's going on in their personal life. You don't know if they've had a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, if they have, exterior stressors that are causing some of this angst, that driving some of these can'ts. The best thing that I can recommend, and this is something that we do within our coaching practices, is listen. Ask some leading questions. If someone gives you a level two answer, get down to level three, level four, level five. The farther we dig, the more what? We find out useful information, other points of data to then give us a better understanding as to what's driving someone's feelings around a particular area. So once again, while I am not afraid of the confrontation, I like to do it in a way that does not derive or further the confrontational piece out, right? I don't want to add and make a bad situation already worse. I like to ask these general questions as to what were you thinking when this happened? What were you expecting for the outcome to be? Why did you do it this way? Okay, well, what would you do differently to get a different outcome? Let's say that we needed this outcome, and let's be very specific. What would you do that was different?
So
If you make it more about dialogue and more of a discussion, it's not accusatory, it's not pointing fingers, it's not blaming, but you're still getting to some of that underpinning root cause.
healthy managed conflict is the best kind of conflict if it's managed properly. And there's a few like basic skills. You're just naming them right there, and maybe I'll put it into a few simple ones.
Please.
So
Sure.
number one is mirroring. When we hear when conflict happens, we need to listen to the person, mirror what they're saying, understand why they have the can'ts or what the conflict is or
Sure.
what the thing they're procrastinating. And that's the summarizing part of it. We summarize what we're talking to them about, and what we're having that conversation. So what I'm hearing is you're saying this, we can't do that because
Hmm.
of this. And then the next thing you just touched on is asking those open-ended questions that
Yeah.
in the dialogue.
Yeah.
And if we can do those three things, that'll completely lower the conflict, first of all, and then we can have that open conversation through the conflict that we're avoiding. And sometimes it's very simple. I mean, it can be just a 2 minute back and forth, and sometimes it could be an open conversation for 45 minutes,
Yeah. As a leader, if you can walk away from dealing with that conflict and someone feels like you care, you've won. You've won.
Yeah, yes.
Not just because you've dissolved a situation that was probably detrimental to what you wanted or what the organization wanted,
Yep.
but you've strengthened that bond and you have shown that that person now has the trust to come to you with issues, with can'ts, with reasons why they can't do something, don't want to. But more importantly, you're going to work with them to help them either see or address that situation. Once again, you're coming up like a pretty darn cool rock star there.
Yeah. You couldn't come out better. And the
Nope.
impact of a conflict, if and it's not addressed well correctly, I mean, I've seen numbers saying that it can decrease productivity and work by as much as 10 to 15%,
Yep.
several hours a week that an individual will spend mulling over that conflict and drilling on it. And you you've just now opened the gate to 10% more productivity and more hours of work and happy work.
If
And
I had a foghorn or an air horn right now, I'd blow it because I'm about to turn this into the bad boss discussion. That was a terrible alarm, by the way. But we've all had some of those bosses or those people that are handling the conflicts, handling the cants, trying to deal with the resolution, and they just make it worse. Here's one way that I think bosses make it worse, and this is where it's going to get fun.
oh no.
Passive aggression. Send an email that doesn't specifically call out the problem, doesn't specifically call out your, let's call it inclusion in that problem, but we'll put multiple people on the email.
That's what I was gonna say. It's that one big thing I say with passive aggressiveness is involving others.
Let me
Like
not handle it directly. Let me CC a bunch of people, not name names, but call out something that was specifically owned by you, right? It's like, I'm not saying you did it, but
you can't
um,
do this, so I'm gonna copy a bunch of other people that I think would probably say they can do this into this email. That
listen,
that one really hurts people.
for you leaders that are listening, if you've done that,
And you've done that, and
stop
you've
it.
done that.
Stop it. Uh, there is nothing worse than that email. And we've all seen it, and like I said, this is going to be fun because that's kind of my one of my biggest pet peeves. Don't talk around me. Don't talk about me to someone else. Please talk directly to me. I'm a grown man. I'd like to think that I'm a professional. Treat me as such. So if you treat people with respect, with dignity, with, you know, the clout that they've earned, man, they're gonna respect you for saying it, right? So I'm a big no-no of the passive aggressive. attempt at conflict resolution. What are some of the other types or styles that just rub you the wrong way, Mike?
Rub me the wrong way. Jeez. Let's get
I told you this is gonna get fun.
that one is yeah, that one's and then get your information and facts. If there's
Mm,
going to be a conflict, come with the right details and information. So you're prepared for it.
mhm.
And because if you come into it with generalizations and things like that that aren't direct to what the conflict is or what the issue is, then you just it can be very frustrating for someone who does have information and facts and
Okay.
trying to approach you with those. I for me that one always kind of hits me when it's like,
Lead
oh,
with
you
facts.
don't have the information, but you're willing to come into conflict with me over something with
I've got one that's similar, which is basically don't come with hearsay. Johnny said, Tina said, Tammy overheard. Don't do that. And here's the other one that gets me every single time. I'm going to address you, Mike, but guess what? I'm going to CC your leader, CC your manager.
yeah.
Oh, you went above my helmet. See my little Spaceballs reference? There it is. Um, that's a major struggle bus for me because, I think once again, we're all professionals in what we do. It doesn't matter the industry. I think treating people with decency, respect is the best way forward. Being open, honest, not hurtful, but honest. Let people know how their action impacted you, impacted the business, or impacted the direction that you were trying to do. You were talking about being specific and coming with facts. Lay out what that impediment caused, what it's going to cost in order to fix, to refactor, to redo that type of effort, and talk about man hours lost, right? Let's talk about the implications of such items. When you can let people know and you can make it real for them, right? And bring it down to this is why we're upset with this behavior. This is why we're upset with this course of action.
Why we're not
Um,
done.
right.
The results, right?
It's you've made something intangible tangible. People love things that they can touch, they can hear, they can feel. Let's make it real, right? So,
One last one for you, and this is my final thought on the
final thought.
like, my final thought on what not to do here
Okay.
um,
Okay.
is patronize with a crap sandwich is what I call it.
Oh,
So we speak very genuinely, sincerely, and how we love them and they're part of the family. And then like, oh, by the way, you're not doing this, you're not doing
mm,
that, you're not doing this. But you know what? We still love you. You're gonna be great. Wonderful.
mm,
Doing
mm.
a wonderful job. We want you here forever. That patronizing can be just just makes everything positive you said negative.
Yes.
Negative is crap. So it's
Yep.
easier just to give it clear and give why we need to do this and give the results that we're going to accomplish and make it realistic, like you say, something tangible.
So I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are a southern state. I will use a southern phrase that everyone will understand, at least that understands southern culture. Bless your heart.
Only a mother.
I'll leave it right there, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows, I guarantee you, someone just heard me say that and started laughing because they're like, yeah, that's totally not you. It's right up there when like I try to be Southern and say y'all. It just does not work. But that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Uh, you know, eh, yeah, I'm
Tony
with you.
Kennedy to start
I'm
it.
with you. I'm with you. You know what? I don't even know what else to say because I'm just making this worse. So why don't you do us the favor this week? Give me a lasting quote. Give me something to walk out that's on the positive because we just kind of went 7 minutes on the negative view. Wrap this all up, Mike. what is your number one piece of advice that you can give leaders to help address conflict so that they get a positive outcome, some concrete resolution, and everyone feels good about the direction forward?
Um, don't avoid it. Understand that conflict is a healthy part of your business and what you're doing.
Mhm.
Understand that it will have negative impacts if it's handled incorrectly and avoided. Um, but if we can, it will promote a cohesive team that will accept conflict each and grow from it. And you'll have a better culture and better, better group and be better yourself.
I do not think I could have said that better myself, sir. So guess what? I won't. So once again, that was very wise words from a very wise man, Mr. Mike Lamb.
Appreciate you. Take care, everyone.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. And until next week, episode 35, we're done with 34. Signing off. Have a great week. Take care.